Hardscape Rambling with George Farmer. And this is the commitment that us YouTubers commit. This is the commitment that we commit. Hi everyone, George here, and welcome to the GFS Gallery. Brand new episode. Really excited about this one. The main content of this video is going to be planting my new Aquascaper 1200 layout. If you want to skip forward the actual planting process, I'll leave a time code there right now. If you want to carry on listening to me ramble, then you can do that as well. So first of all, I wanted to talk about Practical Fishkeeping Magazine. This just came through my door. I've been a subscriber now since 2003, so what's that, 16 years? And I think it's an interesting story with regards to Practical Fishkeeping, or PFK, as it's abbreviated or acronymed to. So I started the hobby in 2002, 2003, became really interested in fishkeeping as a topic, and therefore subscribed to the PFK magazine, and then quickly became interested in aquascaping and planted tanks. So I read their articles with particular interest, and it was during this time that I realised a lot of the articles that PFK were releasing weren't keeping up with the modern kind of ways of growing plants. So the articles at the time were talking about limiting nitrates and phosphates to control algae. You know, you have to use soft water, garden soil underneath the substrate, substrate heating systems, etc. And these were all kind of flying in the face of what I was learning about from people like Tom Barr in the US. And I was using these kind of new methods, higher levels of turnover, lots of CO2, just regular tap water, adding nitrates and phosphates, all the things that were kind of countering what was being talked about in the magazine. So I was achieving great success. I was growing carpets of glossostigma, which at the time was regarded as really challenging. So I wrote in almost like a letter of complaint saying, guys, love your magazine, but some of the content isn't quite accurate. And then to prove the point, I actually sent in a photo of my current Aquascape. I'll overlay an image of that right now. It was a Mother Microsaurum. It was a groundbreaking Aquascape for me back then. And I got a reply back saying, oh, we love your tank, can we come and visit you for a reader visit? I was really thrilled with this. I was a big fan of PFK, and it was a real honour to be, have an opportunity to be featured in PFK. But unfortunately, I was in the Air Force at the time, and I was just getting ready to be deployed for a 4-month tour in the Falkland Islands. So I actually stripped the tank down. It was my only aquarium at the time. So I wrote back and said, thanks so much, really honoured that you've considered me to be featured. Unfortunately, I've stripped my tank down, but if you'd like to learn more about this kind of new method of keeping planted tanks and aquascaping, then I can write, and I'm very happy to produce some articles for you. And that's where it all started. So this was like 2005, 2006. And for a period of 10 years, I've contributed pretty much every month to PFK magazine. So articles on aquascaping, CO2, lots of step-by-step articles, biotopes, a whole range of anything to do with planted aquariums and aquascaping. And to this day, I'm still on their panel of Ask the Experts with regards to planted tanks. So I just wanted to talk about PFK magazine. It's not an official endorsement, it's just a magazine that I still love to read. The editor is Nathan Hill, who's a good friend of mine. And you might be interested to read the May issue, which is a couple of issues ago, where I was actually featured being interviewed for the magazine. And that was a real honour, and it was a really nice article actually. It was just sort of talking about my journey and how I got to where I am right now actually, and talk about YouTube and all the things I'm doing in the aquascaping community. It is available online as well as the paper version, so consider checking it out. It's a general kind of coverage of the fish keeping hobby, but there's usually aquascaping in there if that's something that you're into as well. Next I wanted to talk about Aquarium Design Group. This is where the t-shirt's from. Some of you may have seen the videos that I produced from my time there. They're based in Houston in Texas. I think I produced 5 or 6 videos from my time with those guys. Arguably some of the best content my channel's ever seen. And I just wanted to talk about them as a store and as a concept, not just only a fantastic retailer in terms of their retail space, but what they're doing in terms of community projects and the high-end installations, and their just attention to detail, the professionalism. I think it's world class, and just kind of wanted to share that with you as well. If you've not seen their content, they've got their own YouTube channel. I'll leave a link in the description to that. Jeff, who looks after all their media, does a fantastic job. His attention to detail is second to none, and his skills as a filmmaker and a photographer are absolutely fantastic. So do check them out. And Mike, who's the other owner, they're both brothers, Mike and Jeff Senske. I see Mike as one of my best friends now. We've spent a whole week together, pretty much 24/7. I've got to know each other really well, and he's really opened my eyes to a whole, not just in the aquarium industry, but just in life in general. So I want to give a special shout out to Mike as well. Finally, I wanted to talk about plants in more detail. We're going to plant the Aquascaper 1200, but I wanted to go into some detail about aquarium plants and why I think almost every aquarium should utilise aquarium plants in some form. So if you didn't know already, aquarium plants are fantastic for numerous reasons. I think number one is that they produce oxygen through photosynthesis. This creates a much healthier environment for the fish, the bacteria, the invertebrates. They remove harmful nutrients, anything with nitrogen compounds such as ammonium nitrite and nitrate. They use as a food source, so this improves the water quality. These things can be toxic for livestock. They also can remove heavy metals, etc. They provide shelter and security for the fish. And of course they look beautiful as well, and you can create beautiful aquascapes with plants. But even if you're not necessarily into aquascaping and using plants to create an aesthetic, you can still use them in their functional form. So floating plants, for instance, you can use these in almost any aquarium. They might get eaten by some fish, but they grow so quickly, especially things like duckweed or salvinia or Amazon frogbit. These plants grow so quickly because they're so near the light. They've got access to CO2 in the air. They're still producing loads of oxygen through their roots, so the water's benefiting from their growth as well. And you can also use them in things like vegetable filters. You could have a separate kind of refugium where you're growing plants in a separate aquarium, almost a separate container. The water's getting pumped through that, and then that water's getting purified and oxygenated by those plants. So it's just a quick one, just to explain to you, some of you may not be aware of the huge array of benefits that aquarium plants can produce to almost any aquarium. So just something to bear in mind, guys. If you're not already an aquarium plant keeper, then consider doing so. I'm sure there's a way that you can incorporate good plant growth in whatever aquarium system that you're having. Even in reef setups, you know, some of the best reefs in the world are using algae refugiums to, you know, increase oxygen levels, remove harmful nutrients, purify the water, release, you know, special amino acids and a whole host of great byproducts from plant growth. And algae is a plant after all. Okay, that's enough of the rambling. Thanks for staying with me throughout that. Let's move over to the Aquascaper 1200 and look at planting in more detail. Okay, the time has come to think about planting the 1200. We've taken out all of the plants that were in here before, we've put them in the 600, and there's also the current plants that were in the 600 previously. So we've got a huge range of Cryptocoryne, Bucophilandra, Anubias and Microsorum, Java fern. Going to separate all these into their individual species, inspect them for health. Any that aren't so healthy I'm going to discard, come up with a planting plan, and then maybe buy some new plants to fill up the rest of the scape. So first thing I'm going to do, take all the plants out of the 600, lay them all out, and then give them an inspection. Okay, step one is removing the plants from the 600. Now there are hundreds of shrimp in here, so I just need to be careful not to accidentally remove them. And then it's also worthwhile just giving the plants a little bit of a shake and just run your fingers through the leaves, etc. Hopefully this is going to dislodge as many pest snails as possible. The plants have been in here for a good few days now, so they're not at their healthiest, but the tank has been injected with CO2 with good lighting and liquid fertilizers. So there's no reason why they should be particularly unhealthy. Their growth may be a little bit distorted because of the way they've been lying in the aquarium water, but hopefully after just a few days in the Aquascaper 1200, planted in the soil, etc., we should start to look nice and healthy again. I could get brand new plants if I wanted, but I just wanted to show you guys, you know, it is possible to recycle and reuse old plants, especially if they're healthy enough. You know, aquarium plants aren't particularly cheap, so it's a good way to save a bit of money. And you know, some of these, especially these epiphyte plants, the Anubias and the Bucophalandra, they've been growing, you know, they've been growing for over a year, and you know, they've formed quite nice specimens. Here's major algae on here, so we're going to make sure we get rid of as much of that as we can before we replant it. And you can see there, you can probably see now the crypt parva in the foreground. Will probably reuse a lot of that. So we have the majority of the plants in this bucket removed from the 600. There are a couple of species left over, the crypt parva and the albedo brown, which I'll take out later on. But let's start with these. I've got 6 plant holders. These are just a temporary thing. I borrowed these from Aquarium Gardens. They have a clear plastic lid, so once we've divided up into individual species, we can seal them to prevent them from drying out. So let's dive into the bucket. First thing I'll pick out is some Anubias petite. So just give it a quick inspection, make sure there's no severe algae on there or snails, and then just repeat that process through all the plants and all the species. Let's do a time lapse. Right, so I've prepared all of the plants. We'll go through those in more detail, each species. I've also just nipped to Aquarium Gardens to buy some good old Trident fern, one of my tried and tested classics. Absolutely love this plant, one of my favourites. I've also bought some Balansae, and Dave has kindly given me some mini Christmas moss. You might have noticed I've removed some of the wood. On close inspection, there was some traces of BBA amongst some of the moss that was already present. So I've just taken it outside and scrubbed it really hard with a metal brush. In fact, I've scrubbed the whole wood to hopefully remove any traces of algae. This is going to give us the best chance possible of not suffering from BBA in the longer term. So now it's a case of refitting the wood, hopefully in a similar, well, it will definitely be in a similar composition to before. I already have the photograph, so I can refer to that, so positioning everything is fine. I also have a couple of other big pieces of Frodo stone which I might incorporate in the scape as well. So I'll put the wood in now, and I'll put the new stone in, see how it looks, and then hopefully we can start planting. It's been a really long day. I think I started filming at, I don't know, 10 o'clock this morning. It's now 6:30 in the evening. I've done some chores and made dinner and stuff, but it's going to be a long day, a long night. I think I want to try and get it all planted, filmed and edited for you guys. This is the commitment that us YouTubers give to you guys, our audience, so hope you appreciate it. I love it really. I'd do it anyway. Just filming it is just slows the whole thing down, but actually filming it and having these breaks in between gives you a chance to think. And if anything I've learned from producing YouTube videos, it's kind of be patient and try to get it right and as high quality as possible for you guys, but still getting it done. Getting it perfect is almost impossible. I'm rambling again. So I've moved the wood slightly compared to how it looked before. I think it looks better. We need to take into account how the plants are going to affect the overall composition. So I've deliberately kind of left some gaps between the wood and the stone where we can wedge our epiphyte plants in, such as the Anubias and Bucophalandra. So I've got a couple of really beautiful pieces of Frodo stone here. Actually took these out of the 600 over to the left, because I'm going to rescape that for future content and also for my book. I don't know if I told you I'm writing a book on aquascaping. So I really like this stone because we can position it vertically, so we get an overall impact from it, you know, looking at it front on, but actually it doesn't take up too much real estate. So let's try it here. A similar kind of idea, using the positioning it vertically so we don't use too much space up in the Aquascape. Okay, so this small stone here is looking odd. We don't need that anymore. or we can reposition it. Oh, that nearly fell over then. And again, that gives us room, some gaps there to add rheophytes. Now, with that in mind, I wonder if we actually... So this actually used to be here, but I think I want to plant more around this area, so I removed it earlier. Let's see if this... It's a bit crazy, but remember, we are going to be planting, so again, this offers more room to add more epiphyte plants. I keep saying rheophytes. Rheophyte plants are plants that like to live in fast-flowing water, basically. Epiphyte plants is a generic term for plants that attach to another plant or something else. I wonder if we just have a nice little transitional stone here, maybe. Cloud in the water. Luckily the filter's quite powerful, should clean up anyway quite soon. And then after planting, I'm gonna, like I said earlier, I'm going to do a huge water change because the action of planting disturbs the soil. That soil's got loads of organics in. You know what? This one is going to look better over to the right, I would say, because it's more in keeping with this stone here. We talked about families of stone, making sure they all look similar colours. Well, this is a similar colour to this, so let's keep that one there. A little bit of space in front and behind for planting. And then let's use this one here. You're actually viewing it from a different angle as well, not straight on, so depending on what angle you're viewing the scape from really makes a difference on obviously the overall composition. So normally most people scape as if they're viewing the tank, you know, full frontal. But actually I'm sitting over there, so deliberately kind of making it flow, all the stones kind of flowing this way, a little bit of balance with the stones flowing this way. I think that works. I'm happy with that. Exciting. Nearly time to plant. Still, this wood here. Do we actually need it? We might not even need this wood, you know. Look, just because you have stuff, it doesn't mean you need to use them. It looks quite nice, actually. A bit too central though with that. Is that too... No, it's touching the glass now. We don't want that because it's tricky to maintain. It's pretty pointless having that there. We're not going to see it with the plants. So it's just using up space unnecessarily. Hardscape rambling with George Farmer. Oh, you know you're going a bit crazy when you start laughing at your own jokes when you're on your own. The boys are upstairs playing on their Xboxes. Emma's gone to watch the Spice Girls of all bands. That looks good there. Wow, I didn't think of that before. Whew, I think we're nearly there, guys. I think if we just maybe move this one back a touch. More space for planting around the front. Starting to feel excited. Don't know about you guys. Okay, let's talk about the plants that we prepped earlier. Remember, all of these in these black containers are from the previous 1200 scape and also the 600. So in this top container, we have Bucophalandra. These are all the healthiest specimens with as little algae as possible. Then we have loads of Anubias. Look at that, beautiful. A mixture of Anubias, Petite and Pangolino. Do like my small Anubias species. I think the smaller the leaf form, the better. It gives you a really nice sense of scale. Just makes everything more complex looking and more lush. And then we have our larger crypts. So these I think are my Oya, and these are the ones that survive best the crypt melt. The Easteriana and the Balansai all pretty much died. And then we have absolutely loads. I think this is Lucans or Willisii, I'm not sure, but there's loads of it. More than enough there. It took me ages to prepare this lot. And then we've got a mixture of smaller crypts here. Parva, Albedo Brown and undulatus red. And then, as I said earlier, I nipped to Aquarium Gardens, got myself some trident fern on wood. We'll probably peel that off the wood and attach that. And then we've got a couple of pots of balansai in submersed form, so hopefully this will adapt quickly and start growing really tall for the back left corner. And then Dave, the owner of Aquarium Gardens, has kindly donated some mini Christmas moss, so excited to attach that to the wood and maybe some rocks as well. Okay, now we can talk about a planting plan. We've talked about the species we've got, now it's time to figure out where they're going to go. So I think it's fairly obvious that the smaller tend to go in the foreground and the bigger in the background, but we're going for like a triangular island scape. So I think if we put the parva running mainly along the foreground here, and then maybe up sort of halfway along here, and then we can do maybe some albedo brown behind here and along here, and hopefully we've got some spare to put around in between these stones here and on the left. And then we've got all of that lucans and willisii, whichever species it is, to mainly cover the mid-ground area. Then we have the Myoia, which is going to go kind of towards the background around here, the balansai in the back left, the Myoia in the mid-ground left, and then we have all of our epiphytes to fit on the wood and maybe in between the wood and the rock interface. So I think it's been quite a long film already. I'm tempted to do it all now as part of one huge video. Do I edit it, get it released this evening, and then do another video tomorrow on the actual planting? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go onto the YouTube community page. This is all retrospect, you're watching this after I've done it, but I'm going to create a post right now and I'm going to do a poll and say, do you want 2 20-minute videos or 1 40-minute video? And then depending on how many votes I have after half an hour, that will be a decision made. So a true kind of audience interaction. So as you've just seen, the votes were in favour of 2 20-minute videos, which is brilliant for me because I think I can do a second video more justice by focusing in more detail on the planting process, go into detail about the plant species themselves, how we plant them, why we plant them, where we do. We can talk about maintenance. We can probably even have the livestock as well, the fish and the shrimp, because the filter's cycled. I just need to test the soil to make sure there's no ammonia leaching. So really look forward to bringing you the second video tomorrow, and really hope you enjoyed this one. I had such great fun making it. I'm really enjoying making content here from the GFS gallery. I hope you're enjoying it too. Let me know what you think. You take care. Keep on scaping. Cheerio.